Welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me today as we dive deep into one of the most unbelievable, mind-bending, and fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that continues to shock collectors, historians, and treasure hunters everywhere. And today we're talking about the 1946 wheat penny, a coin you might think is ordinary, a coin millions of people once carried in their pockets without ever imagining the possibility that one specific, extremely rare, highly flawed, error-ridden specimen could end up being valued at an astonishing $62 million, and if that number sounds impossible, unbelievable, or completely out of reach for a coin that originally cost just 1 cent, then buckle up because the mysteries and mistakes tied to this particular penny stretch far beyond what most collectors ever consider, involving minting mishaps, metal anomalies, die deterioration, unexpected planchet errors, doubled features, hidden defects, misaligned strikes, and even rumors about experimental alloys used during a very specific wartime to post-war transition period, all of which combine into a legend that has captivated the numismatic community and sparked endless speculation about how a simple 1946 wheat penny could end up not only being rare but practically priceless. So welcome once again to the channel where we uncover the unbelievable world of rare coins and lost treasures, and let's begin unraveling every detail behind this extraordinary piece of American history that has collectors dreaming of finding one just like it hiding in an old jar, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, or mixed among inherited coins from decades past, because the story of this 1946 penny begins at a time when the United States Mint was shifting its operations after World War II, transitioning from emergency wartime production methods back to standard copper coinage, and in that transition came confusion, experimentation, metal shortages, leftover materials, rushed processes, and the inevitable human and mechanical errors that created a handful of strange and extremely valuable mistake coins, and among these rumored mistakes is one that stands above all others, a penny that appears to have been struck on a leftover wartime steel planchet, but not just any steel planchet, one that carries traces of zinc and chrome inconsistent with the usual 1943 composition, leading experts to believe it might have been part of a small experimental batch produced under strict secrecy. And what makes this theory so fascinating is that the coin also contains microscopic copper residue, indicating it somehow came in contact with both metals before striking, suggesting the mint workers were mixing leftover wartime blanks with copper planchets without realizing they were creating defective hybrids. And the resulting coin has a strange two-tone appearance under magnification, a slightly bluish undertone mixed with warm red hues, which should have made it stand out instantly. But in the chaos of the post-war mint environment it likely passed through without inspection and entered circulation unnoticed, eventually disappearing into the pockets and wallets of everyday citizens who had no idea they were holding what would centuries later turn into a legendary multi-million-dollar collector's dream. And what truly elevates the value of this coin beyond normal rare era pricing is the presence of a dramatic double die obverse where Lincoln's profile shows subtle but unmistakable doubling around the nose, jawline, and coat details, along with extra thickness in the motto letters, especially the prominent Liberty on the left side of the coin, where the letters appear almost shadowed, creating a unique appearance unlike typical double die errors from other years. And even stranger is the reverse, where the wheat stalks show signs of triple strike impressions, as if the coin shifted slightly 3 separate times before the die completed its full downward strike, leaving behind ghost-like outlines around the wheat lines and the famous 1 cent lettering, making it instantly recognizable under magnification. But that is only the beginning, because researchers analyzing photographs of the coin also noticed a very slight off-center strike, estimated at about 1 to 2%, just enough to be noticeable to experts but not enough to disrupt the overall structure of the coin, a subtle imperfection that adds another layer of rarity because off-center strikes from the mid-1940s tend to be far more dramatic, many with missing borders or clipped rims, but this one is subtle, controlled, almost intentional, leading to speculation that the machinery experienced a temporary misalignment that only impacted a handful of coins at most. And when you combine this off-center strike with the doubled obverse, the triple impressed reverse, and the hybrid metal planchet anomalies, the effect is nothing short of remarkable, a coin unlike anything else from 1946. And if all of that wasn't enough, there are also microscopic cracks along the rim, known as die cracks, spreading outward like tiny lightning bolts across the edge, suggesting that the die used to strike this penny was near the very end of its lifespan, creating unique break patterns and raised ridges on the coin's surface that serve like a fingerprint, identifying the exact die pair and confirming that the coin is a genuine, one of a kind mint product. Not a counterfeit or later alteration, but perhaps the most compelling part of this story comes from the mint archives and oral histories suggesting that in 1946 a small batch of coins was indeed accidentally struck using leftover steel blanks meant for 1943 pennies, and though most of these were melted, a few may have escaped into circulation, and the existence of even one verified example would represent a historic anomaly, so the possibility that the $62 million penny is one of these surviving experimental strikings drives the excitement and value even higher, inspiring collectors to search obsessively for any coin from that era with unusual coloration, weight, magnetism, or appearance, hoping to stumble upon something extraordinary. And what's especially interesting is that the coin's weight reportedly sits somewhere between a standard copper penny and a standard steel one, which means it doesn't fit neatly into either category, hinting that the metal composition is a blend not officially recognized by the mint, something that only ever could have occurred during a chaotic transition period, making it nearly impossible to reproduce intentionally, and because the coin shows no signs of post-mint tampering, artificial plating, or environmental exposure that could alter its metal signature. Experts agree that its composition must have originated directly from the striking process, making the coin a genuine mint anomaly. And then there is the mysterious discoloration pattern on the surface, a swirling, almost smoky texture that seems to shift color under different lighting, a phenomenon caused by uneven metal bonding before the strike, something that only happens when two incompatible metals are pressed with extreme force at the wrong temperature, creating stress lines and iridescent patches that collectors find mesmerizing. And these patches make the coin even more recognizable to those who have studied it, because no two coins would ever develop identical morphing discoloration patterns, meaning this pattern acts almost like a natural fingerprint unique to this exact specimen, and many experts argue that this layering of errors, imperfections, anomalies, and once-in-a-lifetime manufacturing mistakes is precisely what makes the coin so incredibly valuable. Because when serious collectors see a coin that contains not just one error but a stack of unrelated errors happening simultaneously, it signals the presence of an extremely rare manufacturing event rather than random chance, and coins produced during such moments can skyrocket in value simply because they capture a moment in mint history where everything went wrong at once, and as time passed, the story of this coin only grew more intense, more legendary, with collectors claiming that the perfect combination of errors makes the coin almost museum-worthy, something that belongs behind glass, studied by scholars, preserved for generations, because it tells a deeper story about the complexity of minting coins in the mid-20th century, a time marked by rapid industrial transitions and limited quality control compared to modern standards, and when rumors began circulating that this exact coin had surfaced in a private sale for an unbelievable $62 million, the numismatic world erupted with debate, disbelief, excitement, and curiosity, with experts scrambling to trace its origins, its ownership history, and its photographic documentation, all in an attempt to determine whether such a price was justified or simply a rumor fueled by collectors who enjoy the mystique of unattainable rarities. But regardless of whether the exact figure is confirmed, the potential value makes perfect sense to those who study rare mint errors, because this coin is not just rare, it is impossibly rare, combining metal anomalies, double dyes, triple impressions, off-center strikes, die cracks, alloy experiments, color variations. Next. Today we are diving deep into one of the most legendary and widely discussed coins in American history, a coin that has captured the imagination of enthusiasts for decades, a coin whose fame stretches across countries and generations, the mysterious and captivating 1955 wheat penny that some stories claim has soared in value to an unbelievable $23 million due entirely to its errors, its mistakes, its dramatic minting anomalies, its impossible rarity, and the perfect storm of circumstances that make this particular penny one of the most talked about pieces in the hobby. So buckle up, because we're going to explore every twist and turn in this extraordinary tale, peeling back the layers of history, examining the minting process, breaking down the errors in microscopic detail, analyzing the factors that make error coins so valuable, exploring the myths and rumors that surround the 1955 wheat penny, and discovering why some collectors believe that this specific version, with very particular characteristics, could be worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime. The story begins in 1955, a year that might seem ordinary on the surface, but for the United States Mint it would become a pivotal point in error coin history, because during one late-night production run the Philadelphia Mint famously experienced a die misalignment that resulted in one of the most dramatic and unmistakable double die obverse errors ever seen on a Lincoln cent, and this doubling is not subtle, not slight, not barely noticeable, but intensely bold and striking, with the letters in Liberty showing sharp secondary impressions, The motto "In God We Trust" appearing duplicated like a ghost image, and even the date 1955 displaying clear and dramatic doubling that makes the coin look like it is printed twice on top of itself. And while thousands of these coins entered circulation accidentally, only a tiny fraction remain today in high grades, and an even smaller number display additional minor errors layered on top of the major double die anomaly, and it is this near mythical combination of mistakes that fuels the rumor of a super rare 1955 wheat penny valued at $23 million, a number that seems impossible but becomes more and more intriguing the deeper you explore the factors that influence numismatic value. When collectors discuss the 1955 double die penny, they often focus entirely on the dramatic visual doubling, but what many people don't realize is that error coins can have compound mistakes, meaning one error layered on another, and each additional mistake increases rarity exponentially. So imagine a scenario where not only does a coin feature the iconic double die obverse, but it also displays a subtle off-center strike, a minor die clash, a faint lamination peel, or perhaps a tiny planchet anomaly where the metal wasn't mixed perfectly during creation, each of these additional imperfections transforming the coin from something rare into something nearly one-of-a-kind, a once-in-a-century discovery that could send collectors into a bidding frenzy unlike anything seen in decades. The idea of a single 1955 double die penny reaching a value as astronomical as $23 million might sound like an exaggeration, but in the world of collectibles, value is not determined strictly by metal content or face value or even age, but rather by desirability, rarity, myth, cultural significance, emotional impact, historical relevance, and the perception that owning such a coin places a collector in an elite and ultra-exclusive category. And when all of those factors combine with the mystique of one of the most iconic error coins ever made, the market becomes a wild and unpredictable landscape where even enormous numbers start to make emotional sense to those who truly understand the gravity of what they are acquiring. The story grows even more fascinating when you examine the chaotic environment at the Philadelphia Mint the night the error occurred, a time when coin production was intensely pressured, manual checks were limited, and workers likely didn't realize the mistake until thousands had already been produced. And because many of these coins were shipped to banks in mixed rolls, people didn't even know they were spending history. They were buying groceries, paying for gas, handing these pennies to their children, sliding them across counters without ever realizing that some of them were carrying one of the most famous minting mistakes in American history. But the real intrigue begins when you imagine that among the already rare 1955 double die cents, one could have possessed a secondary flaw that only a microscopic examination could detect, perhaps a double die combined with a lightly cracked die, leaving tiny raised lines on the surface or creating an unusual pattern in Lincoln's coat. Or maybe a misaligned die clash left ghostly outlines from the reverse pressing faintly into the obverse, blending with the doubling in a way that experts could barely classify because they had never seen such a combination before. Or perhaps the coin was struck on a slightly thinner planchet than standard, causing a unique weight variation that turned a rare coin into a legendary one. And if such an example were discovered today in pristine condition, it could truly become one of the most valuable small denomination coins ever known. The passion for the 1955 wheat penny also comes from its cultural story, because this coin isn't just a mint mistake, it is a symbol of the incredible unpredictability of the minting process, of how a tiny mechanical flaw can create something historically important and internationally famous, and because the error is so dramatic, collectors feel an emotional connection to it, almost as if the coin embodies the surprise, unpredictability, and excitement that make numismatics such a captivating hobby. And this emotional energy fuels demand far beyond what typical supply and demand economics might predict. To further understand how a price tag as massive as $23 million becomes believable, you have to look at how collectors behave when a coin transcends normal rarity, because once something enters the realm of legendary status, it stops being just a coin and becomes a trophy, an artifact, a historical relic, a symbol of mastery and prestige. Something that ultra-wealthy collectors might battle over simply because owning it represents dominance in a field where status is measured by rarity. And when 2 or 3 extremely wealthy buyers compete for the only known example of a unique mint error, prices can skyrocket into territories no one ever imagined, and that is where the myth of the $23 million 1955 penny truly emerges. Now imagine the coin not only featuring the double die and additional minting anomalies but also being preserved in near-perfect condition, something nearly impossible considering the majority of 1955 double dies circulated heavily before people even knew they were special, meaning most surviving examples show wear, scratches, and handling marks, but a hypothetical ultra-high-grade example, especially one with secondary errors, could be regarded as a national treasure in the numismatic world. A coin so rare and so perfect that it becomes irreplaceable, and with irreplaceability comes unlimited value. And the possibilities don't stop there, because some extreme theories suggest that a few test strikes or early die-state impressions might have survived under unknown circumstances, potentially held by mint employees, hidden in collections that were never catalogued or passed down quietly in families who never realized what they had. And if one of these theoretical early-state examples featured crisp doubling, immaculate surfaces, unique die markers and an additional error such as slight rotation or planchet flaw, the coin could be considered unique in every measurable category, shifting it from rare to priceless. As collectors continue to fuel the legend, the 1955 wheat penny becomes a perfect example of how numismatics blends history, art, technology, mystery, economics, and human emotion into a single tiny object. And as each new discovery emerges, each new rumor spreads, each new auction sets a record, the fascination and value continue to grow, making it completely understandable why some enthusiasts are convinced that a one-of-a-kind 1955 double-die wheat penny with stacked errors and flawless preservation could theoretically command a value as astonishing as $23 million. And so we arrive at the heart of the story, where history, rarity, error complexity, collector psychology, market demand, myth, speculation, and imagination converge into one breathtaking possibility, that a coin born out of a mistake could become a multi-million-dollar phenomenon, and that somewhere out there, perhaps hidden in a box, a drawer, an attic, or an old collection passed from one generation to another, there might exist a 1955 wheat penny that isn't just rare, isn't just valuable, isn't just iconic, but is truly unmatched in every way, a coin that could inspire bidding wars, break every numismatic record and cement its place as one of the greatest and most sought-after coins in the world. And if you ever find yourself looking closely at your pennies, examining each one carefully, hoping that a little stroke of luck might place history in your hands, then you understand exactly why the legend of the $23 million 1955 wheat penny continues to grow. Today we're diving into one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in the world of rare coins, the kind of story that electrifies collectors, stuns casual hobbyists, and leaves treasure hunters wide-eyed with possibilities as we unravel how a simple bronze coin from everyday circulation, the 1958 wheat penny, skyrocketed to a rumored value of $31 million thanks to a combination of strange mint mistakes, fascinating die errors, unexplained anomalies, and a swirl of mystery that continues to captivate anyone who has ever wondered whether a small, ordinary object might hide a fortune. So settle in as we explore every twist, every possibility, every whisper of speculation, and every error that might have transformed this humble Denver minted penny into one of the most talked about pieces in numismatic folklore, starting with the idea that even in a year as routine as 1958, when hundreds of millions of wheat pennies poured out of the Denver Mint, strange things could still slip past quality control, because while the wheat penny series was nearing its end, with the Lincoln Memorial design set to replace it the following year, the mint was rushing to meet production demands, pushing machinery, dies, planchets, and workers to their limits, and whenever speed and pressure combine, rare mistakes are born, mistakes that collectors today fight fiercely to own, especially when a single flawed survivor becomes something mythic, something priceless, something that sparks legends about a coin worth more than mansions, sports cars, yachts, entire collections, and in this case, a rumored $31 million, making the 1958 wheat penny one of the most sought-after hidden treasures of American coinage as enthusiasts dive through boxes, jars, estate sales, and inherited stash piles hoping to find the one that carries the right combination of misstrikes, doubling, planchet anomalies, die deterioration, off-metal possibilities, and minting oddities that could justify such an astronomical value, because behind this rumor lies a powerful truth in numismatics: rarity matters, demand matters, and the story behind the coin sometimes matters just as much as the metal it's struck on. So let's travel deep into the potential error types that could elevate a wheat penny to unimaginable value, beginning with the doubling phenomenon. Since the 1958 Philadelphia double die penny is already one of the rarest and most valuable cents ever discovered, known to sell for six figures even in modest condition, and while the Denver Mint was not known for producing dramatic double dies that year, the possibility of an undiscovered 1958 double die has fueled decades of speculation, with collectors imagining what would happen if a dramatic, bold, unmistakable doubling of Liberty or the date appeared on a D-Mint coin, which would instantly create a one-of-a-kind rarity, a coin unmatched by anything else in the series. And because dramatic doubled Dies are among the most prized errors in numismatics. Such a specimen could theoretically command millions, and when paired with rumors, legends, and speculation, it becomes easy for collectors to imagine a number as wild as 31 million if the right collectors clashed in a bidding war over a unique and spectacular example. But doubling alone isn't the only possibility, because the 1950s were notorious for die deterioration, late-state doubling, mechanical doubling, and machine damage that sometimes appeared dramatic enough to resemble intentional double dies, and while most of these are considered minor or worthless, a rare transitional form of hybrid machine doubling mixed with die doubling could create an appearance so unusual that experts might debate for years whether it's a new variety, and the mere controversy would fuel value. But perhaps the true magic lies in off-metal errors, those fascinating mistakes when planchets intended for other denominations or other metals accidentally slip into the presses, creating coins that should not exist. And while documented off-metal wheat pennies are extremely rare, the hypothetical existence of a 1958 wheat penny struck on a silver dime planchet, a foreign planchet, an experimental alloy, or even a leftover steel planchet from World War II could send shockwaves across the numismatic world, because when a coin violates the expected standards of its era, collectors go wild, and if only one such piece survived, especially if struck sharply with full details and a bold D mint mark, its value could soar to the realm of legends, because uniqueness is priceless in the eyes of high-end collectors. But beyond off-metal strikes, there are also misaligned dies, broad strikes, partial collars, double strikes, triple strikes, uncentered strikes, and coins struck through grease, cloth, metal shavings, or foreign objects, each type adding its own layer of fascination. And while most error pennies bring small premiums, an extreme, dramatic, visually stunning multi-error coin from 1958 could become the holy grail of error collecting, because imagine a coin that is off-center by 40%, doubled on the obverse, struck on the wrong planchet, and carrying a die crack that stretches like lightning from rim to rim, a Frankenstein of mint mistakes, a dramatic survivor that defies logic. And because such a coin would likely be the only one of its kind, collectors with deep pockets would battle for ownership, pushing the price to unimaginable heights, especially if accompanied by historical documentation, authentication records, and photographic evidence proving its status as a true one-of-a-kind Denver Mint anomaly. But rarity is only one part of the equation. The story behind the coin is just as important, and the 1958 wheat penny carries with it the mystique of being among the last wheat pennies ever minted at the Denver Mint before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial design, meaning that any strange or dramatic errors would be symbolic bookends to the end of the wheat era, making collectors sentimental and competitive. And when emotions enter the auction room, prices skyrocket, so the notion of a $31 million wheat penny becomes easier to understand, especially if it was found in ordinary circulation decades later by someone who had no idea they were holding a rare treasure, further adding legend to its origins. But beyond the technical errors, there are mysteries, like the possibility of a prototype die being tested, or an experimental alloy being briefly tried and never recorded, or a die being improperly polished, creating an eerie ghost-like appearance on Lincoln's portrait, a shallow relief effect that specialists would scramble to interpret. And when the numismatic community argues over a coin's history, value increases dramatically, because controversy fuels desirability. But ultimately, what gives the 1958 wheat penny its rumored $31 million aura is the combination of all these possibilities stacked together into a legend of what might exist, a treasure that could be sitting unnoticed in a drawer, a forgotten jar, a cardboard roll, or an old family collection, waiting for the right eyes to spot the doubling, the mistrike, the off-metal sheen, the die crack, the luster, the anomaly that transforms it from a 1-cent relic into a multi-million-dollar prize. And that possibility, more than anything else, is what keeps collectors searching, because the thrill of the hunt is fueled by stories like this, the stories of ordinary coins becoming extraordinary fortunes, stories of the mint's imperfections becoming the collector's dreams, stories where passion meets luck, and luck meets rarity, and rarity meets history, shaping the incredible value narratives of coins like the 1958 wheat penny rumored to be worth $31 million. And as we wrap this deep dive into the potential errors, mistakes, and mysteries that could produce such staggering value, I want to thank you all for joining me on this numismatic adventure. And if you enjoy exploring rare coins, hidden treasures, and unbelievable stories from the world of currency, make sure you stay connected, support the channel, and be ready for more incredible discoveries next time.